After.
After. Later than something, following something in time. For example, we'll leave after lunch. Animation. The process of making films, videos, and computer games in which drawings, models or images of people and animals seem to move. For example, computer/cartoon animation.
Athlete. A person who competes in sports. For example, Olympic athletes.
Aware. Knowing or realizing something. For example, as you're aware.
Awareness.
Awareness. Knowing something, knowing that something exists and is important. For example, awareness of something.
Ball. A round object used for throwing, hitting, or kicking in games and sports. For example, a golf/tennis/bowling/soccer ball.
Ballot.
Ballot. The system of voting in writing and usually in secret, an occasion on which a vote is held. For example, the chairperson is chosen by secret ballot.
Baseball. A game played especially in the U.S. by two teams of 9 players, using a bat and ball. Each player tries to hit the ball and then run around 4 bases before the other team can return the ball. For example, a baseball bat/team/cap/fan/player/game.
Basketball.
Basketball. A game played by 2 teams of 5 players, using a large ball which players try to throw into a high net hanging from a ring. For example, a basketball game, a coach, a team, a player.
Bat. A piece of wood with a handle, made in various shapes and sizes, and used for hitting the ball in games such as baseball, cricket, and table tennis. For example, a baseball cricket bat. Bat. A piece of wood with a handle, made in various shapes and sizes, and used for hitting the ball in games such as baseball, cricket, and table tennis. For example, a baseball cricket bat.
Beat. To defeat somebody in a game or competition. For example, beat somebody at something.
Bet. To risk money on a race or an event by trying to predict the result. For example, you have to be over 16 to bet.
Bubble. A ball of air or gas in a liquid, or a ball of air inside a solid substance such as glass. For example, champagne bubbles.
Bunch.
Bunch. A number of things of the same type which are growing or fastened together. For example, a bunch of bananas.
By. Used for showing how or in what way something is done. For example, the house is heated by gas.
Casino.
Casino. A public building or room where people play gambling games for money. For example, a new hotel and casino in Las Vegas.
Cast. All the people who act in a play or film. For example, an all-star cast equals including many well-known actors.
Champion.
Champion. A person, team, etc. that has won a competition, especially in a sport. For example, the world/European/national/Olympic champion.
Championship.
Championship. A competition to find the best player or team in a particular sport. For example, the National Basketball Association Championship. Cheerful. Happy, and showing it by the way that you behave. For example, you're not your usual cheerful self today. Club. An organization for people who share an interest or do a sport or activity together. For example, a golf, a tennis, a chess, a film club.
Coach.
Coach. A person who trains a person or team in sport. For example, the head/assistant coach.
Coach.
Coach. A person who trains a person or team in sport. For example, the head/assistant coach.
Compete.
Compete. To take part in a contest or game. For example, the games were an outstanding success. Competition. An event in which people compete with each other to find out who is the best at something. For example, a design/an art/a talent competition.
Competitor.
Competitor. A person who takes part in a competition. For example, over 200 competitors entered the race. Consecutive. Following one after another in a continuous series. For example, she was absent for 9 consecutive days.
Container. A box, bottle, etc. in which something can be stored or transported. For example, a plastic container. Contender. A person or team with a chance of winning a competition. For example, contender, for something. Contest. A competition in which people try to win something. For example, to hold a singing/talent contest. Contest. A competition in which people try to win something. For example, to hold a singing/talent contest.
Control. The power to make decisions about how a country, an area, an organization, etc. is run. For example, control of something.
Correspond.
Correspond. To be the same as or match something. For example, your account and hers do not correspond.
Corresponding.
Corresponding. Matching or connected with something that you have just mentioned. For example, a change in the money supply brings a corresponding change in expenditure.
Coverage. The reporting of news and sport in the media. For example, media or newspaper press coverage. Crowd. A large number of people gathered together in a public place, for example in the streets or at a sports game. For example, he pushed his way through the crowd.
Deal. To give cards to each player in a game of cards. For example, whose turn is it to deal?
Debut.
Debut. The first public appearance of a performer or sports player. For example, he will make his debut for the first team this week.
Defeat. To win against somebody in a war, competition, sports game, etc. For example, defeat somebody/something.
Defender.
Defender. A player who must stop the other team from scoring in games such as football, soccer, hockey, etc. For example, a passionate defender of human rights.
Display.
Display. An arrangement of things in a public place to inform or entertain people or advertise something for sale. For example, a beautiful floral display.
Display.
Display. An arrangement of things in a public place to inform or entertain people or advertise something for sale. For example, a beautiful floral display. Eager. Very interested and excited by something that is going to happen or about something that you want to do, showing this. For example, eager crowds outside the stadium.
Excitement. The state of feeling or showing happiness and enthusiasm. For example, the news caused great excitement among her friends.
Exercise. Physical or mental activity that you do to stay healthy or become stronger. For example, swimming is good exercise.
Export.
Export. To sell and send goods to another country. For example, export something.
Final.
Final. The last of a series of games or competitions in which the winner is decided. For example, she reached the final of the 100-meter hurdles.
Fixture. A sports event that has been arranged to take place on a particular date and at a particular place. For example, there are plans to make the race an annual fixture.
Fly. A small flying insect with 2 wings. There are many different types of fly and many of them spread disease. For example, a fly was buzzing against the window.
Following.
Following. That is are going to be mentioned next. For example, answer the following questions.
Following.
Following. That is are going to be mentioned next. For example, answer the following questions.
Following.
Following. That is are going to be mentioned next. For example, answer the following questions.
Football.
Football. A game played by 2 teams of 11 players, using a round ball that players kick up and down the playing field. Teams try to kick the ball into the other team's goal. For example, the kids were outside playing football.
Gain. To obtain or win something, especially something that you need or want. For example, gain something.
Gambling.
Gambling. The activity of playing games of chance for money and of betting on horses, etc. For example, online, internet gambling.
Game. An activity that you do to have fun, often one that has rules and that you can win or lose, the equipment for a game. For example, the kids were playing a game with their balloons.
Gaming.
Gaming. Playing computer games. For example, online/mobile/console gaming. Go. To move or travel from one place to another. For example, plus ADV/prep.
Goal. A frame with a net into which players must kick or hit the ball in order to score a point. For example, he headed the ball into an open goal, equals one that had nobody defending it.